We are here today at ISHA Price's home. We're grateful for her to welcome us into her home because she is the older sister of both Venus and Serena Williams, the cultivating tennis players, champion tennis players, but also the executive producer on the film released last year, the 2021 spectacular King Richard.
Yes. Wonderful.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about the film, but I also wanted to give the audience an opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. The lesser known, to sort of and get a chance for everybody to know about what you've been doing. And can you tell us a little more in your own words, who is ISHA Price?
ISHA Price is a entrepreneur who definitely, obviously, have the sport entertainment background, but I'm just a lover of relationship building across the board. And as a result, I've been able to develop some wonderful relationships throughout the years with so many different people. My mentor, who's now passed away, told me one time that the most important thing and the most important commodity that you can ever have that no one can take away from you is the way that you can build a relationship with another human being, because we are the most important commodity on the planet. And so I'd like to think that I've worked really hard to be good at that. And as a result, all the things that come from that in terms of business or, relationships, personal, interpersonal relationships, have been successful as a result of that axiom. So I'd like to think that that would be how I describe myself. I don't subscribe to leading with a lot of, oh, hello, this is who I am, and this is what I've did, and this is where I've been, and, because in the scheme of things, none of it matters if you're just by yourself, or, I'd like to think that, I try to speak from a platform of like, how can we be unified and what unifies people instead of what's divisive. So I like to think that that's who I am.
That's awesome. That's really great. How did this one appeal to you a little bit more, and how did it allow for the whole family to come on board?
This film, King Richard, was different from the beginning. I was asked by Dave Worcester, who is with WME, William Morris Endeavor. I have a long relationship with him. And he reached out to me and he said, have you read the script? And I said, what script? And he was like, oh, Jill had a script for you. Have you read it? And I said, oh, no, I hadn't read it. And he was like, okay, I'm going to send it to you again. And I said, what's this script about, Dave? He's like, I know. We've been down this road before about scripts, about books, about all the things, for Venus and Serena, but I think this one is worth a read. And I said, okay. I did not read it. It took me some time because you get a little jaded. We've been approached on many occasions about how do you do a story like this? How do you want to tell your story? What lens do you want to tell it from? And to the point where people did unauthorized representations of us in terms of what they saw, media clippings, things like that, things of that nature. And this was different because of two reasons. Number one, it was a snapshot of time.
Yeah.
It wasn't a story trying to tell a life story, right? And in the original script, actually, there were a lot more. It was a lot more. There were flashbacks going back to my dad and, what it was like for him to grow up in Louisiana, where he grew up, and where we got the film, for those who have seen it, is a microcosm of that. You get to see his history and who he is as a result of how he reacts to situations and how he deals with his family. And so that makes it made it a very special script to me. And the way that the second thing was that made it different for me was the fact that the whole family was included. Historically, people like to take Venus or Serena or Venus and Serena, and it's just about them, but it was really a family effort. And this cast and this script was more about family at the core. And that was very intriguing to me. And I felt like that would be the only way that we could tell the story and be honest about it, is to include everyone.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That helps understand. And yeah, I read that a lot in terms of speaking just a small, it would have been such a difficult feat to do the whole life, right? Impossible. Almost impossible. There are so many things that happen, and again, it's like, okay, so how do you wrap your life up in 2 hours?
Yeah.
And
we all have a story to tell of some sort, and to suggest that you take this larger than life situation and drill it down to 2.5 hours, 2 hours is a disservice. And so to have this approach be taken from the beginning, this is the first time I've seen this. This is without having met any of us. Zach Bailick did an incredible job with this script, and the other producers, Tim and Trevor White, they're amazing because they wanted to tell this story for so long. And the inception of it was, this is literally the greatest coaching story ever. You have this man who did not play the game, taught himself the game, raises his family in one of the hardest communities to raise a family in. And somehow, not only does one make it, but 2 of them do, and the entire family is able to be successful. How does that happen? Yeah. And he's a person of color, so it's a black man in America, And it's interesting because sometimes on the set, talking to Will, he would say, this is an American story, and it could only have happened in America. There are things that happen here in this country to people of color that happen in other places, but they're informed by something different. They're informed by such a level of misunderstanding and hatred. And for no reason, I'm not saying that it's rational, but they're informed by a different set of stuff. And to have people to come up out of that and make it in spite of is astonishing for people. So they look at it at like, oh, look at this unicorn, We're going out into the press and stuff, and one of the questions that I would often get is like, how did you do it? Like, how did you guys do it? But it took a whole family in order for it to happen the way that it did. And that's why that had to be a part of the story. You can't tell the story to be sensory without telling the story of my dad, of my mom, and of myself and my sisters. It doesn't happen because you need the support.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the part that people forget with all these Herculean like efforts. When you see these achievements, it's like there's always a pillar behind that person or those people. In your case, like with two champions. Um, and what do you think? Like, what would your advice be to people who have, biographies or personal stories that they want to tell? And there's just like, is that even yours? It's so big and so famous and so well known. Even that it takes a while to be able to tell the story. Do you have any advice for other people trying to get their personal stories out?
Absolutely. I would say be honest, and tell you the truth. Honesty and truth is so much better than falsehood. It just is. It's more entertaining a lot of times, like it just is. People do some amazing things. So I would say be in charge of your own sword and tell your truth. And that sounds really cliche, but so many times people take and they make inferences about what your life looks like. So you look at this and you say, oh, they just made it. I'll give you an example. It was playing in Cincinnati. And we were at the tournament, and we've been asked to move from what is usually the family box because they had sold all these seeds. So we were asked to move it to a different area. And so we moved to the different area, and to the left, there was this lady, and she was heckling Serena so bad. So I didn't hear her. She was on the far side of the court, but I heard her. And she was heckling so bad that she was saying, she just, I'm so tired of her. She just, people are, just because she's Serena Williams, the people are supposed to act a certain way. She's not, she didn't just walk on the court and be the best that has ever played again. It didn't happen like that. There was a lot of work. There was a lot of times, and she was about 4, 5, 6 years old, where she couldn't go to the playground right away. She had to do something else first. It required a lot of discipline. It required a lot of sacrifice. There were things that had to be getting up in order for her to get to where she was. So don't trivialize it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times when you're not in charge of your own story, things end up hitting trivialized and dumbed down. And so for those who are trying to tell their story, and yes, it could be as big or as monolithic as whatever, but if you hone in on what your truth is and what it is that you want to share with people, I think that there's a clarity that comes and you can do it quite easily.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just love sharing stories. I mean, yours is particularly inspirational, but it's good to get our experiences out there and heard. And I really love the job that Ronaldo Green did, and
Right.
He was really phenomenal. How did the director's selection process take place on this particular project?
So, with any project, most studio films, not necessarily talking about independent ones, but most studio films, the studios have a way that they like to operate. Some studios are more into actors. All studios are really into actors. But some studios, you really love the director. And the reason is because there are some that are really more, they're better at getting commercial success, right? And so the studio that you went with, going with Warner Brothers, they were a great partner, and they really gave us a lot of freedom. And what we wanted to do was make sure that our film was packaged as completely as possible before even going out to the studio. So you never really had to go out. We made the blacklist in December. The December before we started film, the December before that, the script made the blacklist, and it was really interesting because we didn't solicit for it, we didn't go out for it, and we made this list, and so then all the studios would come to us, which never happens. You know, most of the time you have to go, you have to sell your script, the guy grind, you got to figure out, or you want to get your financing. But we didn't have to do anything. All we had was a script, and we had a commitment from Will Smith, and who didn't want to do it unless we were all on board. He was like, unless I have the family's buy-in, we can't do it.
Okay.
Which was great as well. So he had a real partner even in that, and I got with Tim, and I said it's really important for us to have Black people, people of color, women on this project. That's really important to me, and it's really important to my family, because there is such a lack of it, in the entertainment business. It's just we're minorities in this country, sure, but there's still a lack there, especially by something we dominate. People are oftentimes entertained, by it, but like we don't have any ownership in it. So that was really important to me. So we start from that list, not isolating or alienating anyone, but with a particular focus to try to find woman, to try to find someone Black, and and have that, and give them an opportunity. So we talked to quite a few different, and had a lot of meetings. Like at anybody, you have a lot of VAs that we really wanted to get the best person for the job. And I remember the first time I talked to Ray, it was a phone conversation. And a lot of this stuff, building this particular project was relationships. I know I said that before, but it really went back to that. And because sometimes people present really, really well, but there is it's a lie. And just for lack of a better term, it's just not the truth. That what they're presenting is the best version of themselves. We all want to do that, but like, what's behind that? And so I talked to him on the phone, he's saying all the right things. His dad, him and his brother, and they grew up in New York, and they played baseball, and his dad was a driver. So it wasn't tennis, but it was another sport. So he understood, from that, that aspect. And there were just so many other touch points that just made a lot of sense.
Right.
So I said, I want to meet you. Let's talk. I really want to meet you in person. He was like, absolutely. So we set it up, and it was he and I, and go to this restaurant that he chose in the city. I flew up to New York to see him there. And I met he's going to kill me, but I met this like goofy looking guy. But it was just really, the energy was so great. And I just knew. But we're still going through this process. Right? So I come back, and I'm like, I really like Ray. I really would. Now, we've gone through some women too. And, without, listening names, like, some of them were American. And I felt like, even though, the UK has some similarities, there were just fundamental differences in this part of the diaspora, and things that happened here in this country, that you just have to be able to pull from. And to not have that foundation and understanding that piece of it, I felt was going to be doing our country disservice. Right. So I chose not to go in that direction. And so now I have to fight for Ray. Right. Because everybody knows more than me. Mm-hmm. This was my first project. This magnitude.
Right.
And so everybody knows more than me. I feel like I am the smart person in the room. And I'm like, okay, this is a new medium. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I'm going on gut. And, this person answering the questions right. And there are other directors who are huge in Hollywood who wanted to do this project. And so I had to fight. And so I enlisted the help of Tim, who also, and Trevor, who also loved Ray. And we were tenacious with the studio and just said, this is what we want. This
Wow. I didn't realize,
this is the guy.
ran a whole campaign for
Because it was he was newer.
he was.
So critical acclaim.
I love that, I mean, it wasn't aware launched in him. I kind of thought that.
Yeah, so he had some success at like he had some success at the festivals and everything with his project for Monster of the Men and some other things that he had done. And so that part of it, he could do it. He's definitely capable. But it was the politics of it all. Really?
Yeah, I do.
It was understanding that we had to kind of fight a little bit for him. And so we ended up coming up with a compromise of sorts because there was no way out. We were budging on Ray. We really were very fortunate, and everything started going into place because we ended up with this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful AD cinematographer named Robert Elsick. And Robert had already had an Oscar for There Will Be Blood.
Right.
He, so which is, as you know, beautifully shot. And I was thinking to myself, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, how did we get all this stuff just falling into place? And so that's when like, it just felt really, really good. And everything started really clicking for us after that.
Your answers are really explaining a lot of it now because the director role is so key to the creative aspect of the film.
Yeah, and he did a wonderful job in storytelling and the way he framed it and the editing of it and the way he brought it all together. Because you don't go and see King Richard and think, that was disjointed. You go and see King Richard and go, I want more.
Yeah.
What happened after that? You feel very informed and satisfied, but you still want more. And to be able to do that and to frame it in that way, I think was a special thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, the most poignant aspect was something you touched on earlier about how incredible your dad's achievements were, in the grand scheme of things. And having been, a tennis family all your life, can you tell us for the non-tennis experts? I mean, it totally came through in the film, just to say, that was the special moment for everybody watching it. It was like, he did what? How? And, I have some friends who have tennis played children, and I understand that aspect of taking you out of such a competitive environment in that time of your life is so important. But for non-tennis people, how amazing was that strategy in comparison to your classic tennis career that most kids and then adults can help?
I think it was an amazing thing because it wasn't a strategy. Okay. At the end of the day, Daddy was really concerned about the impact that type of association would have on us as people and us as a family. The way that, the tennis, junior tennis scene was and still is in California in particular and other competitive places like Florida, it is extremely cutthroat and extremely competitive. And it's one thing to be competitive. There's another thing to browbeat your kids, yell at your kids, and your kids yelling at you. It's like a whole thing. It is a whole thing. And Daddy was given, no, this is not going to be my family. This is not going to happen to us. And so part of it wasn't really strategic as much as it was, and this time it came up crossing the film too. Things kind of just working out for us. I mean, he had done this plan, and he wanted to get into this place by a certain time. It's always the plan. And we all little pieces of the plan that he would say some stuff. You have to be like a little secretary.
But bread it out right now because they're all one guy.
And he would stay up. I remember we would all go to bed that evening, sitting at his desk, working on it. And, you know, for it to all come to fruition, is an amazing thing. But taking us out of the junior tennis scene was part just because he felt it was necessary, and he really believed in Venus and Sonia. He knew that it was going to happen. I mean, I feel now like he had to believe it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this cannot fail. And he was willing to put all of his bets on it. And as a result, it was like, they're not coming back, and so they're ready to play professional. That's just what it is. They don't need this. You learn to play another junior, and then what? And so he did have a strategy of making sure we always hit with men, people who were stronger, people who were bigger. That was always a part of the strategy, because he wanted us to be able to hit hard. I played too, the whole family played it, but he wanted these as soon as they hit hard. He wanted them to hit it out. He wanted them to be able to stand up to anybody. It didn't matter who was on the other side of the court. He would bring radios out and play music really, really loud so that they wouldn't get distracted.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Learn to play with noise. It's a quiet game. Everybody's supposed to be hush-hush, but you got to learn to play with noise, because it's not always going to be quiet for you. You look different, so they're going to look at you differently. They may yell at you. They may jeer at you. What you going to do? Are you going to get distracted? Well, they're going to be, you know, so these were the types of things that I think were more strategic. But pulling the Saba in the juniors was more, I think, for him, he thought, a necessity.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, you know, you want to say it, you know, such determination that it by all means necessary, but it's actually not. And I think, you know, the family preserving the family, not just the perseverance for the sport. I think that's what really made it work for you guys, and what made it work for you ultimately, because you have to draw some lines, right?
Yeah,
for yourselves to keep your vision.
You can't allow anybody to dictate what your situation is going to be. Like, you know, those are things. There's certain things most things are outside of our control, but we can control and dictate what is in our control. And that was something that he definitely felt was in his control. And when you work that part of it is the most important thing. He had control of what was going on with his family.
Right.
You know, and family always came first. And I think prioritizing in that way.
Yeah.
And understanding the hierarchy and like how things need to go. If I take care of this, then this other thing, and that take care of this, and then I take care of this, and everything else starts to fall into place. You know, and putting the right priority. It could have been very different if it had been like, well, let me first go out here and make all the money I can so I can afford the lesson for somebody else to teach them.
Yeah.
But then you're getting what? You're getting coaching, sure, but for hours time. You know, you're still going to have to pay for that hour or 2 hours. What happens with all the other time that's necessary to help them to become champions? Somebody's got to get out there to do it. So to have the thought to say, you know what? Why not me? I can do this. Nobody cares about it more. Nobody's going to put in the work. No one's going to stand out there with his foot in the bucket. You know, because they got corns and sore feet. My dad would be on the tennis court with his foot in a little, like a square bucket, you know, kind of get to soak your feet.
Yep.
They put Epsom salt and warm water and stick his foot in the bucket. No sock, with one tin for them all, one foot in the bucket and pitch ball. And that's just what he did. Like that is what's necessary.
Yeah.
And people don't have the people don't have time to eat dinner with their kids at a day, let alone stay out on tennis court for 1 or 5 hours.
Yeah. I think
it's time and a lot of sacrifice.
It's very much like a thought process that's outside the box. right? I think once you, you know, remove yourself from your circumstances, from what's immediately in front of you, like you said, prioritize what you know to be your truths and your priorities and stick to it. It sounds so easy, right? That's why I'm laughing, but it sounds easy, but it's not. It's like there was a lot that was not even up by everybody,
You know, and my mom, my mom would go to work. She would come home. She would change. She would go to the center for it. She'd meet us there. And that's just what we did. Day after day, 6 days a week, year after year, for maybe 13 years, you know? So when you put it in perspective, it's like, okay, that takes dedication. And it's just dedication on the part of Venus and Serena too, because they weren't forced to do it. Just this one point when Venus had this growth spurt, and she had her leg ended up in a cast, so she couldn't run, clearly. And she didn't break anything, but they had casted her leg because the way her bones will grow. Venus is 6'1".
Yeah.
So the way her bones grew, they grew offset, so they had to reset them. And they wrapped her leg in a cast so that she could, if it grew the growth plate. So Venus was out in a wheelchair on a tennis court hitting balls. What do you want to do? You know, like, this is just, I mean, we were all crazy, I guess. I don't know, like, you know, it was, but it was just what you did. Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, it's like, we grow up, your reality was your reality. And unfortunately for some kids, that reality is really sad. But for us, our reality had to do with tennis. And that's just what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, and our reality can be so different globally, as the podcast encompasses like all of the continent and the diaspora and African Americans. I wanted to hear from your perspective, what does Pan-Africanism mean to you?
Pan-Africanism to me means unity. Like, it's a unifier. It's something that we've all come from this one place, and we all are in different parts of the diaspora. But there's one qualifying thing that could possibly unify us, and that is the continent. And for me, that's what Pan-Africanism is. It's unity and a unifier.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, and there was definitely like unity acting as a linchpin throughout the storyline. I think back to so many like potentially great athletes or potentially great you know, explorers or whatever their industry is. And I think a lot of them probably were lacking that kind of family support, and lacking the glue that kept you all together in terms of being extra great or amplifying their greatness, so to speak. So I think it's important. I think it's important for us to remember, you know, who is that us?
But yes,
Because, you know, I always hear it in Serena and Venus's speeches all the time. They don't forget, for sure. They're always grateful for their family's support. And it came through in the film. But let's talk more about like your role as executive producer again, and how was it being on set for you, coming from
a different profession. Yeah, okay. Being an executive producer was a dream. I ended up finding a real love for it, and I am pretty good at it. My mom likes to say I'm good at it, because I like telling people what to do.
Yeah.
But this is not what, to me, being an executive producer is. It really is connecting people and problem solving. And I like to think that I'm a pretty good problem solver. I'm able to be level-headed and think clearly in most situations when I'm not overwhelmed. Because we all feel overwhelmed, I'm human, you know. I went at it because when we made the decision as a family that we were going to do the film. And when that decision was made, the caveat was, ISHA, you need to be there. you want us to do this, we need to be there because we want to make sure it's honest. Especially for my mom, it was really important for her for it to be truthful. And as a result, I made a commitment to be there. I moved to LA. I was on set every day, looking at the dailies.
And it
literally
the pandemic.
And we started filming it. We started pre-production in February of 2020. And we started pre-production. I can't even believe that. We started pre-production in February 2020, and we literally started filming into February. We were a few weeks into filming when the pandemic happened. And at that time, it was like we were past the place of no return. Of course, everybody was nervous. Are we coming back? And the studio had made a real commitment to us that, we were coming back. We weren't the only thing that got shut down, of course. Everybody got shut down. Everyone was scared, and just didn't know what the future held at that time. But we were able to come back in October, and we were able to finish filming at the end of the year with COVID protocols in place, of course, which meant testing regularly and the other day. It also meant a huge increase in our budget for that because we had to be able to still try to make a film, which theatrically ended up having some challenges. We could only have a certain amount of extras. We still had to film crowd scenes. So there were all these fantastic little fun things that we got to see.
I can imagine. I was getting ready to ask, probably, took a blow in your budget, and then all sorts of inconveniences that probably extended the shoot.
Definitely.
And they sure did plans, and
especially because we're already working with child actors, and they have limitations on their time and how we can shape it. And then you introduce into that, like I said, what the crowd scenes. You introduce into that, how do you have the actors interact, but not really deal with the crew. Because the way that it was structured is that, okay, so this part is tested this day, this part is tested that day, and there's some people who just had to be isolated. I mean, isolation on young people, kids really, was really challenging, and so we had a really good time offset too, they will come and do TikTok dances and be waking my trailer and and it was really wonderful. We had such a wonderful group of actors.
Such a phenomenal cast.
A phenomenal actors.
Oh.
Yeah, we had tonight Sydney who played Dennis, then Singleton played Serena.
Yeah.
Layla Crawford who played Lynn.
Yeah.
Danielle. That played me. Yeah. She was really great.
I liked her up the time.
And then we had Michaela, who played the role, our sister Yatunde. And that part was challenging too, because obviously Yatunde is no longer with us. She passed away. She was murdered in 2003. And so having this person ask me questions about her, and also Michaela, who played the role of Yatunde. And everyone else is still alive, but Tundi is not. And so there were questions she had, like, what were her mannerisms like? What kinds of things did you guys do together? What y'all talk about? Like, these are all things that needed to be absorbed by her so she could do this accurate portrayal. And so it brings up quite a bit of stuff, but it still was such a wonderful job to have. And to do it with these incredible people. They were just really, really spot on.
Yeah, so it must have been tough.
Yeah. They were really, really great. I loved them all.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it goes without saying, the incomparable Miss Engineer, Ellis. She is just phenomenal. And she did such an incredible job um, as my mom. And it was interesting. They were having the conversation, and I remember one day on set, they had a conversation. I remember one day on set, as Anu asked me a question about something. And I said, yes, well, my mom is this type of person. She's like, I understand. And I said, oh, okay, what's said, right? Lo and behold, the energy, and it had to do with the kitchen scene, the famous
kitchen scene.
Yeah. And I remember,
Oh, wow.
when we were filming that scene, I remember the house. I always remember the house. And she didn't want anyone else to wear out. She was getting into this space, and she called me over. I'm like, oh, yes. And she just asked me one. I'm gonna share a question. Excuse me, but she just asked me one question, and I answered her. She said, "Thank you so much." I'm kind of.
I'm hearing a lot of, satisfaction, I guess, with how ingenue and how professional she was in coming into and stepping into your mother's shoes. Really,
Yes,
that must have been really satisfying for you.
it was surreal.
It was surreal
And satisfying.
Yeah, because did you feel like job done? Thank God.
No, because, and that's interesting you asked that, because in the beginning, my mother's voice was just not right.
Okay.
That was one of the I think flaws in the script, and if it was a flaw in the very beginning, and it was just because, most of the time people see her as this very quiet, person who just kind of fades into the background. And my mother's an introvert, very true. She is not fading anywhere though. And so for Angelina to have this just quiet, powerful presence, and for her to get that and be able to share that and express that and exude that part of my mother was surreal. And as you said, extremely satisfying, because it was like, this is it. This is right, And I'm not sure that there's another person on the planet who could have given us that performance. I honestly don't believe that there is. And it meant so much to her. And it meant so much to everyone. It meant so much to Will to get it right. They felt like we had entrusted them with this gift, and they treated it like a gift. And that is something that I will always appreciate. Really special.
Your coaches.
I
think that they did things. They've inspired generations. They've broken down barriers. Nobody. We all love the story, because I don't think there is another little black girl or boy tennis player, for that matter, who's gonna have to do what Venus and Serena did. And
let's hope not, but yeah,
no, necessarily with but like I think they've broken through enough challenges and changed those spurs into real accomplishment that were recognized globally. And your parents were like the root of all that.
Yeah.
How did you there's a little mention, but you don't go into it in detail in this film about that kind of transition away as a parent, from a coach in their career. How's that process? Like, how did you all keep still that whole unity and peace and peace and
Here.
that one always works.
Yeah, no. It's interesting. We really genuinely enjoy each other. And I think when you have that part of it, it makes it easy. I was telling somebody recently, I actually spend more time with my family than most people get the opportunity to. And there were things that happened that almost mandated that we stay close in that way. One of them was it really did feel like us against the world a lot of times. You know, when you see that scene where we're going to Jimmy Tennis Summit for the first time, and everybody looks a little bit different than we do. And Daddy said, you know, or Will says, you know, they're just not used to seeing good-looking people like that. That was my dad. Like, he never made us feel self-conscious about our blackness or who we were. And it was a unifier for us because it was like, it's us and then it's everybody else. You know, not really us against them, but just us and everyone else. And that was something that would have a reprisal for decades. The whole time that they're in the sport today, you know, and the inspiration of this other generation is great because they don't all look like Venus and Serena. You know, they look like everybody, you know, and to hear the people who they have been able to inspire is a very special thing. To know that no one else will have to fight for equal prize money. Why? Because Venus was able to get it across the finish line and make sure that it was equity for women and men in the sport. There's so many fights that won't have to be fought.
Right.
But there are other things on the horizon, you know, and I think there'll always be a time where you have to have someone to be the first to do something. So stretching yourself and having to carry the torch, so to speak. For whatever reason, you lift the torch up and you keep going. And part of that came from us feeling like whatever room we walked into, we could hold our head up and we could be our complete authentic self and not make any apology for it. And for that, we had to stick together because there was always going to be something, someone, some situation that presented itself that could potentially tear you down. And you have to have some sort of nucleus. No one's really a superhero. Like, not really. We're superheroes, I think, in our own mind and in our imagination, but we all need each other, you know? We weren't created to live of, for, and by ourselves. It's just an island makeup as humans. And as a result, to be able to turn and to know that you could pick up the call, to know that someone's going to pick up the call.
Yeah.
It's foundationally securing, right? It's interesting. We went ATV and my sisters are nuts. Okay, so I was with Serena and Alexis, and we got ATV and Serena I'm her emergency contact. And I was like, well, her emergency contact feels, shouldn't Alexis say, like, well, first of all, he's here with us. So if we go, who else they gonna call? Second of all, she's like, you always answer the phone. I never have to worry about you answering the phone. Oh, and I was like, oh, and she literally wrote that. She don't answer the phone. And she don't answer the first time I call back. Like, she wrote this on the form. Like, girl, first of all, you make me sound crazy. But second of all, like, yeah. So that's the kind of relationship. I would love knowing that that's the security she feels in our relationship with me. It makes my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really powerful. I think, you know, to add to what you were saying, really, it's no man is an island, no woman either, but it's more like we'll all have challenges that will test our self-determination, that will test, you know, us as our strength as individuals. And in those times, it's like, yeah, who do you turn to?
Yeah.
And if it's your family, it's definitely the most solid foundation you can really get. So, you know, it's wonderful. I think, you know, like the world is going to be there, but when all the guest players, you know, good, bad, or different, it's really interesting. It's so funny. I was at Telluride at the film festival there, and it's the first showing of the film to like a real audience.
And I'm not talking about like the testing audiences. I'm talking about the real audience who've never seen the film.
Okay.
And we're at this film festival. We're opening the festival. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so, you know how you prepare yourself, you think emotionally, and you think, oh yeah, I got this together, right? So I had it together. So then one of the PR people said, okay, so I'm just going to prepare you for this crowd. This is a movie-going crowd, and they are serious about their film. So don't be surprised if you don't get any applause. Don't want you to feel like it's not successful. It was just means that they're just really into their films, and they know what they're looking for. They're a special group. And I was like, okay. So now I'm nervous. Yeah. You know what I really before? I was like, totally fuck up. But like now I'm like, what is this to read now? You know? I go to the theater, and, you know, it was myself, it was Ray. Ray goes up, he introduces the film. No, he went up after. Someone else, the person who runs the film festival, we got her. She introduces the film. And people watch it. I could not stay. So nervous. So we leave, and we went to go get something to eat. We come back toward the end of the film. We file into the theater because now there's a Q&A. And so Ray is like, you know, he's getting ready to go up. We're all on the sidelines just watching people watch the end of the film. And, you know, you kind of glance at the audience because you don't know what reaction you're going to get. And like people are like literally watching to the very end. And then Beyonce comes on and people are like reading, you know. And then the lights come on and people are applauding. And I started bawling. I was like, oh my God. Because this whole time I was like, words I could have been told, oh, been apple flat. Don't be worried about it, da 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 da. Right? People are literally applauding. They're wiping their eyes. They are like, it's all this stuff, right? So we're walking out theater after the Q&A, and this woman stops me. And she says, excuse me, she had an accent. She said, excuse me. She said, I just have to say, I know who you are. And I just have to say, that was an unbelievable film. And I'm going to go call my sister. People coming up to me saying, I haven't talked to this person in this many years. People coming up to me and said, oh, I had that relationship with my family. I understand. I get where you're coming from. Isn't it wonderful? Good, bad, or indifferent, it made people think, you know, about their own situation and their own relationships. And that part was the best part. It was the best part of being a producer, to being able to create something and have people leave with wanting to better whatever that situation was.
Yeah.
You know, or to either if it's to pat themselves on the back and say, good job. You know, you managed that a great relationship with your mom. You know?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we were on set one day, and being the set from the set, this is a set in Milwaukee, and we'll still hold hands. Like in the case, I hold hands with my sisters this morning, but we could do it. And somebody, and I didn't think anything of it because we do it always funny. And I think it was, I know it was, Tony. The play is called Poet in the film. So Tony comes up and Tony says, you guys still hold hands? It's like, oh, and I took my hand, but it's my on the end. Oh, this is my it. I was like, okay, I'm sorry. But like, yeah, like it's wonderful. It's wonderful to be able to have that exteriority and said, I'll ever recreate that again and again and again for people. And so the projects that I choose to work on have to have that element. They have to have the element of being able to share something that is going to encourage people to either A, have a conversation, or B, reconnect. Because I think those are the most important things that we could be doing.
For sure. Yeah, and those are, you know, the recipes for a great movie. So maybe that was the real mission accomplished moment for you. when you got the standing ovation.
Oh my gosh. But it was so scary. I was like, what is about to happen? Like, and the theater was dark, so you couldn't really see what was happening. And then at the end, when you see the end credits, and it's like all the stuff that's happening, it was like, okay,
Yeah.
all the dark, like those screens are dark,
Yeah.
the black screen with the white writing. And I'm really looking at that point. I'm like, bless. I can't control it now. Like, so if they didn't like it.
Yeah.
And then the applause after there's a screen, one of the screens says, so when she signed with Reebok for All in Kelly. And she, at that time, was the highest paid female athlete ever.
Yeah.
Indeed, it was. And the applause broke out, and it did not stop. But then what happened was a lot of call and response, which is not necessarily normal for a group of people, right? That's something that Black folks do, but it's not necessarily something that people do. And it was like, I know that's right. But with like some of the swings, and just them just reacting to the things that were being said and things that were like shared at the end of the film. And it was a really special thing. It was a really special.
Yeah, it was special to watch, like the way you created that space for your family to. I think it enables other people to join in and celebrate it with you. So thank you for taking that great feat of and challenge of exposing such intimate and emotional things about your past. It was wonderful on the receiving end. But I do have one quick other technical question, again with your EP hat on, and about the release a year ago, and it was definitely unusual to see how it came out simultaneously, both on screen, on HBO.
Sure.
And theaters did very well. It did outstanding, but I know part of me always felt like this is unusual. How did that decision come about? What's your feeling on it?
That decision was not us decision. That decision was a decision that the studio made, and they released. They basically came to us and said, "This is the model that we feel is the model of the future, and what we feel we have to do. We don't know where the world is headed to be. Pandemic. We want to encourage people to be safe. And we want everybody to feel like they can watch this film, because this is a film for everyone. It's not a film for people who can, space out in a movie theater if the movie theaters are even open. So we have to make this decision. That decision had to be made prior to the pandemic being over. So there was, a lot of forecasting involved and like what's going to happen. So we didn't know what was going to happen. And so I think the studio felt like they made the best decision for them. It wasn't a decision that we necessarily agreed with. But the decision was made, and, we were able to, we dealt with it. The interesting thing about it, though, is one of the things that it allowed to happen is that everyone has seen this film. I don't care if you've been you saw it on an airplane, not everyone, like, let me not be that cocky, but most people.
You could say we've all seen it. Like, a lot of people have seen the film, and the outreach.
That part was dope.
Yeah.
Because you also have to kind of do a juggling act. Like, what are you doing it for? If you're doing it just to sell tickets and to be in the theater and to quote unquote make money, then maybe it's not what you really are passionate about. And we wanted it in theaters because we wanted everyone to have access to see it. And there are some platforms that are not available in China, that are not available in certain countries. And we wanted to create a space where everyone could see it if they wanted to. And that, I guess, in a way, that was even heightened by the fact that it came out in theaters, and now a lot of people chose to watch it at home. But there were a lot of people who chose to watch it in the theaters, and so that worked out for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like HBO Max and in a theater at the same time, and I think they were the first to do that.
This is why this episode, like a year on, is so special to me. I almost feel like everything your family does being so exceptional. It's almost like a case study, from a British perspective, because here you have this amazing story, and then the middle of the pandemic, and obviously we're not even going to bring up, the notorious slap and all the other things that happened at the time. You were trying to tell your story, but you still get strong. Nothing there's the sounding down. So then
it's really,
you make it work.
Yeah, they make it work. Life was empty with challenges all the time. It really is all about how you get through them. Some people choose to go under, some people go around, some people get stuck.
Yeah.
But we were always taught just go through. Because if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you'll eventually get to the other side of anything.
If anything.
Of anything. You'll get there. You put your trust in God, lay it on Him. You take care of the things that you can take care of, and everything else, you'll get through. And when you have that kind of faith, it puts stuff in perspective in a different way. Yeah, it really does. Because there is nothing that is so important or so debilitating that you won't be able to get through it. Doesn't mean you don't struggle. A nervous breakdown or two are there. But you get through to the other side.
You get through to the other side, and yeah, for sure. So what can we expect? What does the future hold now for ISHA Price? And also, is there been talk of a sequel? I think everyone wants to know, man. And in a year,
North America. So we're definitely working on something. And that has been really, really exciting to be working on that. And there's also other projects that we're doing. And those are exciting. So it's definitely opened up, a way in a avenue for us that was completely unexpected. And, we're going to do what we do, like we go in every space. We're going to do our best and give it our all. And I think we'll come out at least halfway decently. Most of it's not hard, So working on about 4 projects, and loving it, loving every bit of it.
So this is ISHA Price, the executive producer for a while now.
Yeah, actually, for sure. Just producing in general, and I think we're doing it together, like we'd like to do every day, And evolution, as it relates to us in particular, usually involves us going real ham. So I think that we'll attack it with the same vigor. I'm doing some projects, yes, on my own, and then also doing some stuff with them, and I'm excited because the future is wide open for us there.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah, I think we've come to an end of our interview. I'm so happy to have gotten to the truths about the truths that you're all telling, and some of the backstories were just amazing. Thanks again for sharing and for opening up. Of course. If you want to add anything, I'm good. Shout out to the Pan African Thank God, everybody. And okay. Anything else you wanted to add about?
No, I just thank you for this opportunity to talk and to talk about something that I really enjoy doing it, and looking forward to listening to myself talk about us.
I think it was good. It was definitely fun. and a unique perspective. Thanks for having us in your home.
Oh, of course. Thank you for coming. We're all excited about the different things that we're doing. You know, Serena is evolving and has evolved with Serena Ventures, and that's by Serena, her brand. And Venus and I, we have these great YouTube videos, so it'd be great if anybody wants to go and check them out. We're Team V, and I'm sure you all can put the link up to the YouTube videos, and we talk about everything from like wine, and we have travels and just different shenanigans we get involved with, which is really fun. So those are all fun to look at. Serena also has a channel called Ash TV if you want to keep up with her, and Alexis and Olympia. And then you know, I do my thing to decompress. I bake. I used to do. It's tough because I get busy, and then it's hard being on Instagram. Like, you know, like editing videos, it's like a real job. So I don't always get to post some of the stuff that I do.
Was it gifted to you? It's amazing.
Yeah, it's gifted. It was one of the things they gave us. It just came, I think, Warner Brothers. Mm-hmm. This is the Warner Brothers pictorial book. This is when we first sat down for a table reading.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. That's me. And that's Danielle.
Yeah.
That's not really me, but that's...
She did a great job.
Yeah, Danielle. She cried on command like I would and everything. So this is Zach, the writer. And that's Trevor. This is the guy who plays Rick Macy. He's
the writer?
Yeah, Zach Bagman. Yeah.